Do this outside, but it is a tad windy out. This is definitely just an answer to a question regarding putting the birch bark on the back of that one bow. The question was, how did I wrap it down the sides? And the answer is, I didn't. All I had, and I'll explain a little bit for those folks who are kind of new to the ways of birch bark. I had it oriented so the grain, the fibers of the birch bark are running fore and aft, just like backing. And because of the shape of the bow and the bending of the bow, I couldn't just wrap it around in that orientation. And so what I wound up doing was I had the strip down the center, then I sanded it to grade it to make that edge disappear, and then I painted it to match the birch bark. And you can tell if you're looking close at it, birch is really actually kind of hard to match color wise. Now at first I had that strip down there, and you know that birch has the black eyes, those are easy, it's just black. But the colors of birch bark, if I turn it this way, you can see the peach colors, and there's purples, and there's reds, and there's subtle yellows. Well, the first attempt I made to paint the sides, well, I'm going to make it kind of grayish. So I mixed some black and some white acrylic paint and put it on there, and it's like, oh, that doesn't look good. What colors am I missing? Why can I not match that? It was easy doing the black lines, you know, with a very fine, good quality brush. But that gray just didn't work. And then I got to thinking, oh my goodness, you know, there's reds and yellows in there. So this is really tricky because I put hide glue over the whole thing. And so I had hide glue as kind of a base. I took a little mug of hide glue, like a little, not even a coffee mug, a smaller thing. Put some hide glue in there, warmed it up so it was kind of, you know, able to paint it on the side. My finger, I took a drop of red food coloring, and it goes a long way. So like a fraction of a drop, be very, like on a toothpick, take some red food coloring and put it in there and swirl it just a little bit, because the key is not to mix it. And then I took yellow food coloring, and you know, with a little in the beginning is better than a lot, and just kind of did a quick swirl. And so in my hide glue paint, just hide glue a little tiny bit, you know, with the droplets of red and yellow, opposite sides, quick swirl, taking my finger and just kind of brush it on, and maybe take some with the red and kind of streak it a little bit, and a little bit of yellow, and that worked. If you were to really, and Matt, you're familiar with birch bark. Look at all the subtle differences, and even between like the white bark and then the stuff that had some moss on it, and you scrub it off and it kind of looks sparkly and iridescent. It's a trick to paint. I can't really help you there, just that reds and yellows to the gray tones of the bark to match the paint. And then this doesn't have the really dark black stripes, you know, that a lot of birch has. It's individual, you know. Then I just took, and that can disguise a little bit of the variations in your color. And keep in mind, birch bark doesn't have to be 100% uniform. Now before I get to the next part, if you've ever seen like movie birch bark canoes or wigwams jibans, you know, a lot of times they're white on the outside. It's the brown inside part of the bark that you actually see on a birch bark canoe. And I'm thinking Last of the Mohicans. The fellow that made those canoes, they're actual birch bark canoes. They were brown like real birch bark canoes, and then the director or producers or whatever is like, that doesn't look like birch bark. Birch trees are white. And so they wound up painting real birch bark canoes to look stupid. Okay, now on to the next part. Matt, you're aware of this. Manitoulin Islands, quill boxes, birch bark containers, all sorts of stuff. You're familiar with birch bark. There's probably a birch bark canoe builder on the Manitoulin Islands, so you know this intimately, but a lot of people don't. The trees, picture like this. And the grain of the birch bark goes perpendicular to how the trees grow. And don't worry, I use this to start fires here, so it's okay. Like this. Now, it's strong this way, it's not strong this way. So when I made that bow, I put it on like backing, strength-wise. Now, if you look at Eurasian horn bows, you'll see that the birch bark actually curls down over the horn a little bit. You'll see the horn peeking out from the edge of the birch bark. So they are actually going around the edges. Now this is the trick. This is what I believe, and I might be correct in this, is that when they do it, the birch bark isn't oriented like this, so it's the strong way. It would be oriented like this. And not as thick as what I used. If you're, again, familiar with birch bark, you know that you can keep peeling it. I'm not gonna, like thin papery layers. I'm assuming that those horn bows are covered with birch bark that's a lot thinner than what I used, and wider strips. And again, the strength direction is going this way, perpendicular to the lay of the bow, and so they can then wrap it easily. These thin sheets and bits, like scales. It's not going to add anything to the strength of the bow, but will give good water protection. And so that's it. My way like this, thicker, sanding the edge, painting the side. Horn bow makers, 90 degrees to the way I did it, and they would actually have it coming along on the horn right here, so great water protection. I hope that answered some questions. It probably raised more questions, like, what the hell are you talking about, John? That is all. Have a good one.